been a little while on the channel since I did a full nerd out stats package pricing review of the Fraser Valley. So that's what we're going to do here today, so you can see exactly what's gone on over the summer and how prices are being affected out there right now. Because to tell you the truth, it feels a little kind of bottomy out there at the moment. We obviously had another interest rate reduction last week, and things are kind of chugging along nicely at the moment. I mean, this is not a stellar, holy crap, I can't believe how much we just sold for type of real estate market, but we had a pretty busy summer, at least here on my team, and lots of buyers were able to get into good properties. Lots of sellers were able to sell. There's still a lot of frustration on the part of a lot of sellers because they're hanging on to dollars that are no longer here. And just generally, the market does kind of feel, like I said, kind of bottomy at the moment. Now, let me preface that a little bit here before I hop into the numbers. When I mean bottomy, I don't mean it's going to take off again necessarily. What I do feel is, let's look at like a regular house in Surrey. The crazy pandemic numbers, pre-pandemic, you were looking at like 900,000, peak of the market. Some of those properties went up to like 1.7, $1.8 million. Now they've come back to around 1.5, sometimes 1.45, something like that. So you will have all of those sellers that are holding on to that 1.6, 1.7 number, and they're going to feel like prices are still coming down. But the properties that actually sell, I don't think we're going to see too much more price come off of those ones. So you might not like the price, but that's not saying that the market value will continue to slide. So it's starting to feel a little bit like that out there in the marketplace. And of course, my market is Surrey in the Fraser Valley. So if you would like to stay up to date on the market and you're into stats like we're going to go through here today, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Click the like button so this message can get out to other people who are interested in the market as well. And of course, if you're looking for help in my market of Surrey or anywhere in the Fraser Valley, you can book a call with me right now using the link in the description below at a time that works best for you. Now, normally this would be called the Surrey Report, but I'm just going to give my team the month off, and I'm going to go through the stats with you, and we're going to go over the whole Fraser Valley stats at the moment. This is all public information that the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board puts out every single month. So go to the Fraser Valley Board website and you'll be able to see this entire stats package. You can look at them historically as well. Now, I just want to kind of zoom in on a couple of things and take a look at the overall marketplace. Starting off with sales. So sales, it's August, so we had just over 1,000 sales last August. That number was, you know, a bunch more. There was about 16% more sales last year over the same time period. And the previous month in July was about 13% more at that time. New listings, they continued to increase over last year. They fell way off though from the 3,400 that's in July. So this is pretty normal for this time of year. You're going to see listing inventory now start to decline. That's just a matter of, you know, there's a whole bunch of people that gave it a go in the spring market and they're just going to take their properties off the market now. So over time, we're going to start to see the month over month numbers for new listings decline. Active listings. Now, this number kind of frustrates me a little bit because really the number is about 7,600 right now, but this is the entire board area. So this will have more than just residential in this number. So 8,600, keep an eye on that because it's a number that we haven't seen in like a decade. Since 2014 was the last time we saw a number that high. But I don't really think that represents necessarily the real estate market as, you know, combined detached and attached properties. It's about 1,000 less than that, but obviously that number's up 37% since a year ago, which is kind of the big deal. So if sales are down 16% compared to the same time last year and listings are up 37%, well, obviously you got a lot more to pick from. The market's going to be a lot slower. And then as you see here, I mean, we're getting a slight decline, about 100 listings or so from July. But here's the interesting thing, and this is why I feel like we're kind of bottomy. Average price, now there's no benchmark price in this situation, but average price is, if you just take all the sales that happen, you divide them, average price went up, and it went up a lot. I don't like average price because there's no way prices actually went up on a year over year basis. But prices are up a little bit, and prices are more up in average price than benchmark price. Benchmark price is much more indicative of what the market's doing, so you're still seeing a cooling down. But when average price kicks up, if that continues over 2 or 3 or 4 months, you're going to start to see that benchmark price start to come up. Now that is the year over year number, but again, you're seeing like a 3.4% month over month increase in average pricing. So could that be people are buying more expensive properties? Could be. Is it the actual reflection in the marketplace of the market is up 3%? I don't really feel like it is, because benchmark is a much better measure. Now, here is really where we are year to date. And this is kind of, really proof in the pudding. What's the overall market doing January till now? And then the same thing last year, January until now. Sales this year, we're sitting at 10,000 sales. Not that far behind the almost 11,000 last year. So we're 7% down year over year. But the real story again is the amount of active listings that are on the marketplace. We're seeing a 20% increase in new listings. Now, again, sorry, I misspoke. That's new listings to the marketplace, not active listings. So as new listings increase and sales drop, obviously the market slows. Now, there are all sorts of areas you can check out. You can see here, this is the overall marketplace. Then we have Abbotsford, Mission. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but you're going to notice that you're going to see some big swings downwards in certain areas. For instance, average price in Mission dropped 8%. That was Abbotsford. Average price in a single month in Mission dropped 12%. These are detached numbers. Seems kind of crazy, but realistically, when you look at some of these numbers, I mean, the benchmark pricing is only down just barely. I mean, it's barely down at that same time. So I wouldn't focus too much on those average pricings. What I am going to do, because it's a Surrey Real Estate channel, is let's take a much closer look at the City of Surrey numbers. So sales, this is detached only now. We're basically right on track with this time last year. We're a little bit higher, but we're basically right on track with year over year. We're basically right on track with last month. So the detached home market, as far as sales volume go in the City of Surrey, extremely kind of flat. Not that far off on price year over year or month over month. So this is why I'm saying, like, it kind of feels bottomy. There's not these big, massive declines. Don't put too much emphasis on this 4.4% increase month over month from 1.7 to 1.77. This is much more reflective of what the actual market's doing within the benchmark. Townhouses, let's take a peek. Townhouses are lower, considerably lower than they were last year. So an 18% drop in the number of townhouse sales. But relatively speaking, I mean, 155 this month, 190 the previous year, 185 the previous month. I mean, this isn't a big fall off, really. You're seeing declines in the benchmark pricing, similar to those declines that we're seeing in the detached market. But the big swing here is the average price. Average price did not swing up a ton, so it actually is leading towards the fact that the townhouse market might be a little softer than maybe the detached market is, or maybe the detached market's starting to pick up. And then we're going to swing over here to apartments. Apartments have fallen off again since last year, about 21% in the number of sales. They've also fallen off since last month. So it's almost feels like a shift here from the attached market a little bit more into the detached market, which, I mean, I'm not really feeling it. Most of our activity is still in the strata side of things. But again, that same sort of feel that the benchmark pricing is still continuing to go down year over year, slightly, month over month, slightly. But then we're seeing a little increase in the actual average price. So, I mean, take it for a grain of salt. Like, don't use average price. I think it's kind of a crappy metric, to tell you the truth. Let's keep going down here. And again, if you have a particular area you like to check out, North Surrey, Cloverdale, South Surrey, you can log on to the Fraser Valley Board's website and check them out there. Now, this is one of the graphs I love to see. This big blue, light blue mountain at the back here is just the amount of active listings that are on the market. And even though you see that little tiny tick down right there where we're starting to come off a little bit, which we do every year, you can see the repetition. That number is as high as it's been. I mean, 2015 was just a slight bit below. 2019 was just a slight bit below. But really 2014, you got to go back 10 years since we've had that many active listings on the marketplace. New listings are coming down a lot faster. Obviously, you're not going to see as many people list in the fall as you would have in the spring. And then the number of sales also tailing off. I do expect this to come down over the next bit and then likely continue to go back up. And then we'll see where it goes in the future. If it's going to be like the years of the kind of 2010s where it was very flat for a number of years, or if indeed we're either going to go down into absorption again or up into a lot of listing inventory. One of the things I want to focus on here, 12% consumption. So this is what we call months of inventory. I report here on the channel quite a bit. 12% is pretty low. 10% is 1 out of every 10 listings selling. So what are we at now? 1 out of every 9 listings is selling. So you have to think about that when you're pricing your property. It is a buyer's market currently. That isn't really reflecting, again, in the average pricing that we're seeing, but it is reflecting the benchmark pricing, but prices are going to remain sticky. Prices don't come down as fast as buyers would hope because sellers are not as desperate as the YouTube comments would have you to believe, but we are in a buyer's market. Until this number turns around, we're likely going to still continue to see declines. It just won't be as fast as everybody's hoping. Home price index, Fraser Valley, I'll skip over that one for now. But the home price index broken up into asset class. I really like this chart. I refer to it all the time. Look at this. I put out a video months ago now, but how the market's going to go flat. And that's exactly what's happening. We're seeing just a flattening here. Now, between $800,000 and $900,000, still a big gap. Still going to matter to you if you're selling your home for, if you sell for $950 or $960 or $970, it's still going to feel like a lot. But relatively speaking, compared to the big swings that we saw, the ups and downs of COVID, and then the ups and downs of the foreign buyer market, or whatever you want to call that happened in 2015, 2016, it is quite flat. And this is actually something I'm looking forward to in the marketplace. It's a lot easier to deal in real estate if market's coming down 1% a month or up 1% a month than if it's going 12 or 15% one way in benchmark pricing. That wasn't fun for anybody. Whether or not you were selling and prices were coming down, it wasn't fun. Or if you were buying and prices were going up, it also wasn't fun. So we are seeing just a flattening now. If you look for the last couple of years, all of 2013, 2014, it's actually pretty flat. There is swings. Sure, there might be $100,000 swing in properties, and that is a ton of money. But on a $1.6, $1.7 million property, percentage-wise, it's not necessarily as big of a number. And then I always like to look at the average price for detached. And look at that. Again, I don't like average because it's saying the market's starting to tick back up. This is just kind of the chart I tell people, like, hey, when you zoom in, you could have the big crash of 1981 right here, but realistically, you could also have the big crash here of 2022, but you're missing out all this run up in the middle. So, this is the chart that says, hey, if you buy and hold in the market long enough, you're going to do just fine. Trust me, when it was, 10 times less home prices, this chart here looked really, really scary. But now that home prices have inflated so great, this will at some point look like a blip just as this does. So there you go. I wish it was more exciting, but we're seeing a flattening. There's a small decline, it looks like, in most asset classes across Surrey. There's some small declines in other places. There's some large declines in average pricing. There's some large gains in average pricing. But overall, it's a really flattening of the marketplace. And unfortunately, it looks like this summer kind of didn't prove anything. The real question is what happens into the fall here as we start to get these rate drops coming in. That's a sign of the economy doing poorly. There will be people that lose jobs and they won't be able to afford homes and they'll be in really, really rough shape. But in speaking to my mortgage broker just last week, his new applications are starting to stack up. And there's lots of people that are thinking about getting into the market at this point in time, whether that's first-time buyers, move-up people. So there's lots of people thinking about doing stuff. And those, I think, will be the people that have secure jobs. You're talking nurse, policeman, fireman. Those people are all going to do great. It's the guys that are in car sales or in travel. Those are the folks that might not be doing as well in the future. So you're probably going to end up with a tale of two different buyer classes, the people that are just barely scraping and feel like everything is hard, and then the people that don't even notice that we're in a kind of a recession at the moment. Let me know what you think of those stats. And of course, you can always chime in on the debate between benchmark and average pricing down below in the comments. Thank you so much for subscribing, clicking the like button. We'll see you in a couple of days.